the message, the campaign that you have put out has gone viral. I think that's an understatement, right?
Well, it's certainly gotten attention. We intended for the campaign to be provocative. We wanted people to start thinking about this meth epidemic that we have in South Dakota in a different way. It's a huge challenge for our state, and we wanted everybody to get on the problem of solving it.
Yeah, and this is definitely something you ran on when you were running for governor, and the message, meth, we're on it. So we've heard this message, but what should we as South Dakotans be doing with that message? How do we take this forward?
Well, I want every single South Dakotan to realize that they have a role, that we all need to really address this. This is a huge challenge for us. The traditional ways that we've dealt with addiction in South Dakota aren't going to be effective the way that we're doing them today, which is why we need to engage everybody in coming alongside people and families that are dealing with addiction and helping them through it, getting them treatment. And so that's why we're focusing on opening up this conversation in a very different way by saying we're on it. We see the challenge. We're going to help people. We're going to come alongside them. It's not a joke. This is a very serious matter. Anybody who has anybody in their family or that they know of that's ever dealt with addiction, they realize that it takes a lot to get your life back on track, to get the kind of treatment you need, and to be successful in the future. So, I've been talking about meth and what it's doing to our state for a long time. But until this campaign came out a couple of days ago, we've never seen this kind of engagement. And that's really what we need to make sure that we're protecting our kids in the future and giving them a situation where they can be successful. So we have double the national average of middle schoolers in South Dakota that are using meth. 80% of what goes through our court systems is tied to meth and addiction. So this is a big issue, and that's why you see us coming forward with a provocative ad campaign like this, is because we need every single person in South Dakota to be a part of the solution.
You mentioned jokes, and I'm sure you've seen on social media there's been a lot of memes and different jokes about this. What is your reaction to that?
Well, for me, I think it's extremely unfortunate because it's not a joking matter to people who are dealing with addiction. The second thing is that one of the biggest things that stops a person from getting help is shame, is that thinking they're the only one who's dealing with the situation, they're the only one who's addicted, and they don't want to ask for help or help to get into treatment. And by joking about it, it's almost as though we're creating more of that baggage that's going to prevent people from really seeking the answers that they need. So my goal is to break that down, to make people realize that they can have a conversation about meth addiction, that through that conversation they can ask for help. We've already had many hundreds of people get on the website. Thousands get on the website, but hundreds look for treatment options on there just since this campaign started. And for me, that's a win at the end of the day. If people in South Dakota know that they can talk about it, that it's not a shameful thing to ask for help, that there is somewhere they can go to find treatment and get back on their feet, that's really what this whole campaign is about.
You don't think the campaign intended to make that stigma more difficult and those challenges more difficult for someone who may be addicted? Are you worried that maybe the messaging in the campaign has done that?
No, I think it's certainly created more conversations. I've already heard stories of people that sat around and were talking about the campaign and then ended up having a much deeper conversation on what they can do, or people that they know that are struggling with addiction, or maybe how they can get more engaged. So people that have told me the conversations, they started out thinking and questioning the campaign, but then started having conversations with their kids and realized that it was a conversation they needed to have. So,
right.
This is something we knew would be provocative. We knew it would grab people's attention. That's exactly what it was intended to do. And because, the old way of doing awareness campaigns, if we would have came out with a campaign that said meth is bad, I just don't think people would be talking about as much as they are today.
All right, I have two more questions. I know you have limited time, so
Sure.
I just want to ask you, there are some criticism from the South Dakota Advertising Federation about spending that money to an out-of-state ad agency, and I'm wondering if you wanted to respond to that.
Oh, well, I've told everybody that when I became governor and that I would be very wise and be a good steward of taxpayer dollars, that we would have a competitive bid process, that we would allow people to make proposals and always choose the best that was the most responsible with the hardworking people of South Dakota's tax dollars going forward. So that's exactly what we did in this process. And this company brought forward a proposal that was effective, that was wise and responsible, and obviously the impact that it's having across the state. And as much as people are talking about it, we certainly know it's getting the word out.
All right, and lastly, I just want to ask if your office was prepared for this large of a reaction.
I think we expected a reaction. We knew that people would immediately tell folks. That's why I think everybody in the state has heard me for the last year saying that we were going to have an advertising awareness campaign coming out, and it would be unlike anything they had ever seen before. I was very clear about that everywhere I went over the last year. And so we certainly knew that this would be different, that it would have an impact. And I'm certainly hopeful that more people have a conversation about meth and how it's devastating so many families in South Dakota. And we all have the responsibility to step up and to get on that problem and help fix that challenge.
All right, Governor, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
You bet. Thank you.